Hello my dear friends, welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. And today we have a couple of pieces of shocking Star Wars news. We're going to cover some major details about George Lucas's unreleased Star Wars project Underworld, and then we have an update from Daisy Ridley. Rick McCallum, someone who was fundamental to the creation of the prequel trilogy, has revealed some new information about George Lucas's never-released Star Wars Underworld series. It was meant to be the next live-action project after Revenge of the Sith. And there are some interviews with some of the creatives, George Lucas himself. There is some footage available online, but nothing fully produced. And for years, Star Wars fans really had no idea what direction Lucasfilm was going to take with it. I was always under the impression it was going to be more gritty and dark, similar to the kind of tone of Coruscant Nights, the expanded universe book trilogy. While the brand new information has kind of blown fans away, there were scripts for 60 episodes. Each episode's budget was over $40 million, and if you guys remember, cost was a big reason this was never finished. But Rick says it would have been dark and more violent than any prior Star Wars project. And then he says it would have been so dark that Disney would never have attempted to acquire Lucasfilm had they seen it. It was almost like Game of Thrones. It was going to turn this franchise on its head. Because something fans don't understand about George is that he was always trying to reinvent what Star Wars was. He wanted the Star Wars universe to be constantly evolving, not just for this series, but also had he made his sequel trilogy. There's almost this misconception that George was going to just adapt the expanded universe for the big screen or the small screen. That wasn't in the plan, and the new information confirms it. He was going to do some crazy stuff with bounty hunters and smugglers, the lower levels of Coruscant, and really show us the worst of the dark times. Just imagine an even grittier, more sinister version of Andor. And this was also set prior to A New Hope, in between episodes 3 and 4. George Lucas announced it at Celebration 3 in 2005. And in 2010, Lucas gave up on it due to budget constraints. But so many episodes were planned, so much was filmed, and a lot of stories were written for it. Here is a direct quote from George. "It's kind of like episode 4. It's funny, there's action, but it's also more talky. It's what I like to call a soap opera with a bunch of personal dramas in it. It's more focused on the individual. It's more based on film noir." And some of the inspiration for this came from the Obi-Wan Camino Dot subplot in Attack of the Clones. Lucas also described it as bare bones and action heavy, but more focused on individuals during this time. So like I say, like Andor, but a bit darker. Rick McCallum also reveals George envisioned 100 hours between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, with a lot of characters we haven't met. Some from the novels, but mostly new characters. And so many folks who worked on it were so disappointed it was shelved, but they understood it had to be. The budget was not realistic. And similar to Andor, Lucas said the Emperor and Darth Vader are heard about, but you don't actually see them. There are stormtroopers and some other Imperials, but no surviving Jedi and no Sith, no Palpatine and no Vader. So it's the real experienced world of the time period of the Empire's reign, those who have to live with the effects of the galactic regime. Some really awesome stuff. A character who really would have stood out is the woman who broke Palpatine's heart. That's right, we would have met his love interest, the person who set him down this dark path. Some creatives did say some of the early drafts did contain Palpatine, and that Ian McDiarmid was willing to come back. Some of the ideas from the show did make it to other media, for instance, the 2013 Kenobi novel. And so now, my dear friends, the Kathleen Kennedy drama continues. We thought we were done, but it kind of gets worse. If you were hoping after the other day, Kathleen Kennedy, okay, she's not retiring, but she is stepping down as Lucasfilm president, so surely that means that she's not going to be involved in many more Star Wars projects. Well, I've got some very bad news, because Daisy Ridley at South by Southwest was interviewed by thedirect.com, and they asked her about the situation, and in what seems like another PR spin, she addressed the rumors and clarifies not only is Kathleen Kennedy staying, but she is very involved in the upcoming slate of Star Wars movies. In fact, I suspect the push for more Rey material came directly from Kathy herself. And Daisy uses the word very twice. Very involved, she says. A week and a half ago, the controversy was an entire saga all unto itself. Matthew Bologna at Puck News came forward and said, Kathleen Kennedy's gonna retire soon, and she's thinking of stepping down as Lucasfilm president. Kathy responded via Deadline.com. She debunked the retirement allegations, but clarifies she will step down as president and a successor will be announced. But in terms of her training the next person, being involved with the transition of that process, and in the case of Star Wars movies being involved with the production and creative sides, she's not leaving anytime soon, and Daisy confirms it. In the new interview with The Direct, Daisy Ridley, who is set to star in the Simon Kinberg trilogy and her own spin-off, confirms Kathleen Kennedy is very important to the future of Star Wars on the big screen, especially where it concerns Rey's future. She is the big overseer, and she's going to work alongside the writers and directors to shape those stories. While this news is not surprising, if you were already apathetic, this update and this headline doesn't do any favors for anticipation of Rey's return. Here's the direct quote, and she sets the record straight. "I believe that she's very involved," talking about Kathy. "I think there was reporting that was not true, so yeah, very involved. And I'm afraid to break it to you guys, but unfortunately Kathleen Kennedy isn't going anywhere. Even when she steps down as Lucasfilm president, she's going to continue producing and be involved with future Star Wars movies, especially the Rey stuff. Because right from the word go, right from when Daisy came out at Star Wars Celebration in 2023, and Sharmina Bates-Chenoy was announced as the director, it was obvious more Rey stories, more stuff post-episode 9 was something that was really Kathy's initiative. When asked when filming is going to begin, Daisy says, "I don't know." She has no clue. And you guys know I like to joke about the fact I don't think this movie is ever going to be made. Well, when you see stories like this, they really don't help debunk it, do they? So Kathleen Kennedy is there to stay. I do still think they're going to announce the next president, probably at Celebration, but in terms of Star Wars' shift back to the big screen, Kathleen Kennedy's producing role is either going to stay the same or even increase. And she's going to be very involved in the next trilogy. So if you're not a Kathleen Kennedy fan and you were hoping, well, it's going to come to an end soon, I mean, if she's stepping down as Lucasfilm president, you'd have to assume to some degree she's going to step away from some of those duties. But it really doesn't seem like it, does it? And Daisy's always been a fan of Kathy. Nothing against Daisy, but what I'm trying to say is, it's no real surprise she's going to defend the president of the company she signed on for another 5 movies. That being said, we've also got another major update from Daisy. And if you're a fan of episodes 7, 8 and 9, this might come as bad news. But if you were hoping for something different from the Rey movie and Simon Kinberg's trilogy, Daisy promises a new iteration of Rey. And she's probably playing coy when she says this, but she warns against expecting familiar faces, like Finn and Poe. The main reason I don't really believe her when she says this is all signs seem to point to the fact John Boyega and Oscar Isaac have been in talks to return to Star Wars. So I don't know if I necessarily believe Daisy and take her at her word. But she said this, "I'll be working with different actors and different filmmakers," which brings up different things, and that is always progressive because it's someone else's interpretation. And naturally, because we're about to enter a new Star Wars era post-episode 9, of course there are going to be new characters. But that, my dear friends, sums up all of today's Star Wars news. If you enjoyed this video, my dear friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, the link to my Patreon is down below, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.